What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you, and one that we've been meaning to do, but, holiday stuff, and we kind of slowed down there for a little bit. But this one was on the horizon, and we didn't want to miss it, and there's a lot of hype around it, and deservedly so, because this was a really, really solid listen. So we are going to go over the latest offering from Panopticon, the Rime of Memory. So this came out on the 29th of November, and we kind of expected all the releases to come out on the 1st of December, but this one decided to spring up a little bit early and cap off November in pretty grand fashion. This comes out on Bend Rune Recordings. This band formed in 2007 in Louisville, Kentucky, but has since moved its base to Minnesota. This is the 9th full-length overall. They also have 10 splits and 3 EPs as well. I got in this band with their albums Road to the North and Autumn Eternal, and this band is kind of a unique band in black metal. It is atmospheric black metal with bits of folk, but it's not like what you would expect, like, European folk. This is a US band, and that means we get US folk. So a lot of stuff that is very akin to like bluegrass and kind of country. But all of that kind of whirled up in this giant atmospheric package, and honestly, this band really has kind of carved out its own little niche in black metal. There are bands that are kind of similar, like Wayfarer. I would say there's definitely some cues taken from Enslaved, White Ward, and even bands like Wolves in the Throne Room and Black Braid are kind of comparable, but I still feel like this band is, kind of just different. And when I say this band, it is essentially one person, Austin P. Lunn, who plays, guitar, bass, drums. He does vocals. He also plays accordion, pedal steel, lap steel, and synths. So yeah, he plays a lot of stuff on here. And there's still a lot of guests on here that also contribute vocals and violins and cellos. So this is a very big album in terms of instrumentation.
And to be honest with you, I wasn't really impressed until he got to the accordion. I was like, man, well, there's tons of drummers, bassists, guitarists, singers, pan, lap, steel, guitar things. But it's when he got to the accordion that I was like, all right, buddy, all right, time to stop showing off. So it leads in with the intro track, I Androgens Hostilage Disterhat. I think I said it right. If I didn't, I'm sorry. That's a lot. That's a mouthful for an intro. Anyway, here's where it right off the bat just kind of opens up. The atmosphere on this entire album from front to back is just gigantic. And it's all like very, very somber, very dreary, cold. Cold is the operative word for this entire album.
Yeah, cold is definitely the vibe on here. It's not like very Cascadian like Wolves in the Throne Room. It does have moments that are similar, but a lot of this is just very sprawling and open. And the way this starts is very intimate. You have layers of instruments coming in. Like it starts off with the isolated guitars, then you get a harmony on top of that, then you get slide guitars. And honestly, while you're listening to it, you don't fully realize that you're getting into the first actual track, Winter's Ghost, which this album legit opens up with a 20-minute track. It is longer than 3 or 4 of your favorite grindcore albums. And it makes really good use of the time to build up. Admittedly, it is kind of a slow start. You're hearing all this coming in layers, and it's very soft at first.
8 minutes, in fact, of the lead into this song. And while that sounds long, and I mean, I guess, don't get me wrong, it is long. But while that sounds like it would be a chore to get through, it's the way that everything is layered and the build that takes you to the actual point when it does kick in that makes it so entrancing.
Yeah, and the build itself, hearing it all kind of, again, come in layers. All of a sudden a cello comes in, a violin. It is building towards something, and then all of a sudden it just breaks into just flat out black metal, blast beats, tremolo riffs. It's very cold and icy. There are giant choirs in the background, which the vocal dynamics on this album are outstanding. There are constantly shifting vocals, and in terms of the mix, there's a lot of shifting around too. I really love how this sounds. A lot of bands, I think, when they try to include all this instrumentation, you can run into a lot of overproduction, kind of making everything too compressed or just too pristine. This still sounds natural and gritty. It just sounds like it's done in a very open, huge
It
space.
sounds like something that I do from time to time. Here in our hometown here, we have an art museum that has a peristyle in it where the symphony plays. And it kind of sounds like that. It kind of sounds like being in just a big, open, kind of amphitheater almost, just one by one, all these instruments build on top of each other. It sounds more like a composed piece of music versus a song.
Yeah, but there's still that like isolation too. Like you're not sitting amongst a crowd. It's just you, and then like each instrument just kind of comes in. Like the whole album feels like being kind of alone, but in a giant sprawling space, which sounds like that's a good chunk of Minnesota anyway. I mean, you're counting like, deer and bears and like lynxes and shit. Like I'm sure they're there too, but
oh dear.
Yeah, it's just a huge sounding album. It's very majestic. The scope of it is huge, and what I like about it probably the most is all these songs are different. Now all these songs are long. Like the shortest track on here is just a hair under 10 minutes. But it's the fact that these songs actually go somewhere. And the dynamics on here are absolutely huge. You can go from, again, like giant, blackened riffs and cold tremolos to very quiet acoustic settings. Again, kind of like bluegrass-ish. Like, all of a sudden it goes from like the cold north and you're wearing corpse paint to I think this whole place is haunted by Civil War ghosts. And that's only like one of the cool stylistic shifts that are on here. Like Winter's Ghost has what I would consider a funeral doom breakdown on there where it absolutely just slows down to a crawl. You have these big reverby drony guitars. The vocals are a little bit deeper, and there's a lot of sections on here that are very like kind of in line with like post metal and post rock. Bands like Caspian or This Will Destroy You, where you have these like giant lush melodies of droning ambient guitars, and they're just huge sound. They fill like this entire void of music because at this point like the blast beats will kind of slow down because there's a lot of blasting on here. Like it's very fast at times, it's very aggressive, but when it kind of slows down and gets moody, like you kind of hear like all the instrumentation kind of like flourish a little bit. Like it's got more room to play.
And even some things that I didn't see coming, kind of like almost like a shoegazy, like Deftones vibe almost when it jams in songs like Cedar Skeletons or Enduring the Snow Drought or the last track, The Blue Against the White. Like all of these songs have moments where in the bridge, like everything drops out and it gets kind of like almost Deftone-ish, like kind of like funky. The drums and like the bass goes for a walk.
The Blue Against the White, that opening to it, like there's kind of a jazzy swing to it. And you get a little bit of that on Enduring the Snow Drought where there's this breakdown that comes in where you get this sort of jazzy rhythm section, but a very atmospheric, like guitar section. And sometimes I'm not entirely sure it's just guitars because this album is so layered with strings and synths. And again, it doesn't sound cluttered. They're all kind of working very well together in terms of creating this giant sound on here.
Tons going on, but never chaotic. You'd think with all of this instrumentation, it reminds me of that scene in Walk Hard, where Dewey Cox brings in, the goats and sheep and bells and choirs and people and drums and that whole song about his life, and you think...
An army of didgeridoos.
An army of didgeridoos, right? You think you got that much going on, it would be chaotic, but it doesn't sound like that at all. Like everything is layered and harmonized and like fits either on top of one another or behind something, or it's just very well done.
And I gotta give like a lot of credit to the mix. This was mixed by Spencer Morris, who I believe he did some time in the band Horseburner. At least that's the only band that I recognize him from. It was all recorded by Austin, but in terms of like the levels, like where things move around, like I feel like sometimes the guitars will sit back in the mix a little bit more so something else can stand out, like namely like choir vocals or strings. The string harmonies on here are absolutely beautiful. Or even other instruments like the accordion. We brought up that accordion, and there's a section there where the accordion just completely takes over and, kind of has this very interesting, like slow ragtime sort of weird vibe to it. But yeah, I think like if this wasn't mixed as well as it was, like I think a lot of this could be lost. So I got to give a lot of credit to the production here because, man, like they really wanted to make sure everything they did on here had room to shine. And while this has like a ton of musical dynamic, this also has a lot of like mood shifting too. Like the, cold, desperate, agonizing screams on here definitely get a lot of darker moods going, but there's also like bright stuff on here, like very triumphant stuff. Like the song Enduring the Snow Drought. It sounds bright. It sounds almost cheerful, like celebratory. Like, I don't know, they didn't have to get up and shovel their driveways, because I'm all for a snow drought. Like, I hate snow. Snow sucks. So I'm celebrating with this entire town and chiming all the bells with them. I'm happier than hell, and that's oddly kind of the vibe. Like, it's weirdly kind of Christmassy, and I hate Christmas music, but I like this. This actually became one of my favorite songs in here because, like, it was kind of dragging you down in the depths earlier on. Like, it was much darker and a little bit more sinister, and all of a sudden, like, the sun comes peeking out and it's shining in between all of the icicles hanging off of your eaves trough that will eventually probably fall and stab you in the head.
Yeah, like, I mean, first of all, we're from Northwest Ohio, so I get it. If there is a snow drought here, you will not see a happier bunch of campers than you will in all of northwestern Ohio, seeing as how it didn't snow. So, like, I get it. I get why that would be, like, more of a triumphant, bright moment, like, fuck yeah, no snow.
No one likes shoveling snow.
It's true about the moods. Like, the first two songs, Winter's Ghost and Cedar Skeletons, like, I immediately felt the need to take antidepressants. Like, it is cold and dark and full of like, desperate pleading screams and just the iciest tremolo possible. I mean, Winter's Ghost, what do you expect?
Yeah, no, it's seasonal depression, the song.
And then you get into songs like An Autumn Storm. I don't know if I would call it cold, I don't know if I would call it bright, but it is intensely creepy. Like, the choirs, if it is a choir or synths, or I'm not sure what's happening, but, like, the melodies are just haunting. Like, unnervingly just kind of like, eh.
Yeah, this song is odd. Like, it is probably the lone one where I'd say, like, this is just sort of, like, sinister almost through the entire thing. And it kind of holds the course on this one sort of vibe throughout most of its runtime, which is, like, 9 minutes and 24 seconds, which is the shortest actual track on here. The thing that really makes it creepy is this effect, whether it is, like, vocals or guitars or strings or keys. It could be all of those things kind of blended together. It sounds like a howling wind blowing through the forest, and you're reasonably sure it's like ghosts, and it's just very creepy. And how the sound kind of like fluctuates a little bit. Like, I feel like the guitars move back just so they can get more strings in there to make it sound more creepy. It legit sounds like a late night storm in the middle of November. Like, it's just cold and wet and just kind of spooky. Like, there's a little bit of leftover October in it. Rarely when I listen to an album do I get, like, transported to a flat out setting, like a picture in my mind. And this song in particular, I mean, honestly, this entire album definitely has a really cool setting that I can, like, almost see on a postcard. But this song in particular, An Autumn Storm, it sounds like the music that would be playing in Jack Torrance's head when he's chasing his kid around the maze, trying to murder him in the middle of winter. Like, it's just dark and twisted, and yeah, no, it kind of feels like a crazy man with an axe muttering to himself and saying his son's name over and over again, so his idiot kid will pop out like, hey, that's my name, and then you can just axe him in the head. That didn't happen, though. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen The Shining. Danny lives.
There's an accordion. How can you go wrong with an accordion? Weird Al played an accordion. Lots of owls played an accordion. But, I mean, Bohemian Polka, Lederhosen. I mean, we're talking about good times. I don't know. None of that's in here. Weird Al's not on this record. I just thought it was a very unique instrument to bring into a black metal album.
Yeah, and it caps off the song. Like, it goes from, like, super dark and creepy to, like, this weird sort of just setting. Like, honestly, it sounds like it could have been in The Shining too. Like, he just walked in a room and there's a dude in a bear suit not blowing another gentleman, but he's playing an accordion this time, which would be not quite as weird as that one scene in The Shining, but still weird. But this song actually goes into probably my one negative on here, and it's a very slight one. Out of all the songs, this one, for me, kind of dragged a bit. Like, it is definitely haunting and creepy. It captures the atmosphere and the vibe of just a spooky night. But I feel like it kind of drones on a little too long. And it's, again, kind of weird because this is the shortest actual song on here. Granted, it's like 9.5 minutes. But, I don't know, that one didn't grab me as much as all these other songs. And oddly enough, all the other songs in here, despite being longer than hell, are absolutely captivating and majestic. They are just huge. They're sprawling fucking epics. But this song, while it didn't completely take me out of the album, it was one that I noticed that I feel like it kind of labored on one thing a little bit too long, and it kind of lost me for a bit.
I don't know. I personally really liked it. Between the creepy choirs, the accordion, and that really, really cool hi-hat accent that was going on during the blasts, I just thought it was very entertaining between that kind of vibe and like the spoken word, and it was just something I found to be very different than anything else on the album. The place where I thought it dragged personally was towards the end of the Blue Against the White, where it goes into that shoegazy jam a little bit, but then it sticks with it for a really long time. Like, I found myself zoning out. At the same time, it was so hypnotic that it drew me right back in, so I don't necessarily know if that's a dig at this point, but I did think it kind of dragged right there.
I thought there were some really cool transitions in there in terms of, like, getting in and out of there, because it's going from, like, fast black metal to, again, like, these shoegazy but almost kind of like jazzy rhythms every now and then. And usually when I listen to bands that are like one-man bands, that, you know, one member is essentially doing everything, I always kind of listen for what instrument I feel they are like less proficient at, and honestly I can't find that on here. Like, yeah, he's good at everything he plays, and it's a lot of things. Like, that is absolutely nuts. So like the level of talent that Austin has is mind-boggling to me. Mm-hmm. This was one hell of a listen, and again, for like a 75-minute long album, I really didn't feel like it dragged too much, and I was just kind of lost in like the amazing songwriting in here, and again, the atmosphere. Like, you can get lost in this album, and I definitely did, and I'm going to go ahead and give this 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Teetering on a 4.5. Like, honestly, if I had more time with it, which, I mean, you kind of have to block off a good chunk of your day to sit back and listen to this one multiple times. But it's just a giant, sprawling album. And, you know, I've been listening to this band for a number of years, and I still need to get a lot of their other stuff because I only have 2 of their albums. But I feel like every album just really transports you to a setting. And, man, the songwriting is just so damn good. There's so many dynamics going on. Like, it's still very heavy and visceral at times, but it's those softer, quieter moments building into the heavier moments. There's just, like, a sense of scale to this band's sound that I absolutely love. If you are a giant fan of, again, like, White Ward, Enslaved, Wolves in the Throne Room, and even, again, like, some, like, post-metal stuff, like, I could even say, like, if you like Cult of Luna, I'm reasonably sure you will find some stuff in here you like. Definitely check this out. This is an excellent album.
Especially that last Cult of Luna album.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with Nick on this. It's a 4, and it might be teetering on a 4.5. Again, I'd have to spend a little bit more time with it because there is so much going on. It is definitely a vast, sprawling atmosphere. From the second this record starts until the moment it ends, like, you were instantly transported into a legit world. Like, I saw a lot of things in my head, from like the White Walkers in Game of Thrones to like the winter scenes in Braveheart to like the battle scenes in Gangs of New York. I like how it goes from icy and cold to notably brighter to where there might be some sunshine, and it's a little triumphant, and it takes you on a journey. And like, you figure for a 75-minute album, you should probably go on a journey. Like, this guy does a really good job at painting these big, lush soundscapes. I would definitely recommend checking it out. I would definitely recommend possibly going for like a night drive and really letting this record take hold. Yeah, if you're a fan of, you know, Wolves in the Throne Room, Garia, White Ward, just things with big sprawling soundscapes in them, definitely that new Cult of Luna, like, I would just recommend giving this a spin. I had a good time, so check it out.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below, thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel, but thrallsmetal.com is where you go to find Thralls Metal stuff. We have t-shirts. We have new shirts. We have old shirts that are on a discount, and we also have hats as well, so if you're looking for any of that stuff, just click the link down below.
And as always, tons of things going on here at Thralls of Metal. We got our end-of-year list coming finally, since we are dwindling down to the end of 2023. It has been a bonkers year. We have you guys to thank for that bonkers year. So much has happened for us in 2023. First of all, a shout out to everybody at Instagram. Holy shit. We posted a video of Nick's CD collection there, and it's got like 240,000 views. Wow.
You've all been in my house.
Yeah, you've all been to Nick's. I'm sorry. It smells like farts and cat shit.
I'm a little gassy.
He farted like 6 times during this video. I'm surprised I didn't puke.
It was like 4.
Anyway, we have you guys to thank for it. It's been a tremendous year, and we appreciate all of you for continuing to show your support for Thralls of Metal that just seems to keep growing and growing, and we are just uber thankful.
Yeah, you guys rule. You guys are what keep us going. We have a ton of content on the way. Again, like retro reviews coming, Black Dahlia Murder ranking, tons of stuff. But for now, I'm going to thank you one more time because you've been awesome, and we will catch you later.